Hello, my name is Jocelyn, but today you may call me the devil. At least that's what I and other trans people have been painted to be. So, gonna have to embrace it. My point is that it doesn't really matter what we LGBTQ plus folks do. It will never be good enough. It will never be acceptable to everyone. And by everyone, I am talking about right-wingers in positions of power, which is kind of different from positions of dominance. One of those things is a lot more fun than the other. I could be a saint. I could help the needy and the homeless, but they don't care about that. I could be a pick-me shill. They're white, although very popular and, with a large following on YouTube, is still never accepted or respected by her conservative peers. I mean, even though those are the ones that she sucks up to the hardest. At the body shop, doing something unholy. Similarly, Caitlyn Jenner appears on Fox News to spout their usual conservative talking points and gets nowhere with the audience because they hate her just for being trans. This is why the left position is a lot more superior than the right, because although we both equally hate Caitlyn Jenner, it's because of the content of the words and the things that she does, not because of what she happens to be. So instead, I and several other prominent LGBTQ people in public have decided to embrace the label of sinner. Twist it, make it our own. At the body shop, doing something unholy. Contrarianism all by itself is kind of hollow. By rebelling against people who literally call us evil and satanic and sinners just for being okay with ourselves. Well, now that's a counterculture. And the right to queer self-expression so marvelously mixes with the traditionally taboo religious ideas of sin, because yes, it's considered a sin. It has been for centuries. Both of these things, giving into desires and accepting oneself rather than denying pleasures, especially like decadent things that are explicitly forbidden. Now that's fun, as well as saucy and sexy. So I will wear the label of sinner with pride. And I will do so especially vehemently, knowing now that the bigots are so close to making it illegal to be trans. We live in a world where two seemingly opposing statements are true. And this is something that I've noticed for myself, but of course it does apply to pretty much every LGBTQ person. Axiom 1. My life is very normal and ordinary. I have a job to earn money. I have a social life. I go shopping and buy food and, I have to do chores. It's very, simple life, really. Axiom 2. My very existence, accepting myself and just being myself, is in itself an act of rebellion. The second statement doesn't really seem to make sense with the first, except when you put it in context of the fact that I'm living in a world where just the being trans part is enough to incite ire, hatred, bigotry, and all of those other things from people who are ignorant at best and hate mongers at worst. So we need to talk about what happened in the UK a couple of weeks ago, which literally changed the course of history. The Gender Recognition Certificate Scottish Reform Bill was blocked by Westminster. Now, that doesn't sound too important, but it actually has a lot of very deep impacts. Details in videos that I will link down below. However, to break it down in the most simple and quick way I can, I'm going to explain things that the GRC does. It allows for a change of birth certificate, it allows for a marriage certificate and a death certificate to all show a person's acquired gender instead of that assigned at birth. Things that the GRC doesn't do is change passport markers or driver's licenses or other IDs with gender markers. It doesn't automatically allow access into sex segregated spaces, and it doesn't accept gender markers that are anything other than M or F. The things that the Scottish Bill proposed was that they would no longer need a gender dysphoria diagnosis in order to obtain a GRC, lower the age of application from 18 to 16, and the person applying would have had to lived in their new affirmed gender for 3 months as opposed to 2 years. The Scottish Parliament sent out a consultation amongst its citizens, which started in 2017. And not only did a majority of the citizens, but also a majority of the MPs pushed for these changes. Now, Westminster, the British government, blocked this bill using Section 35 of the Notice of Scotland Act, which this section had never been enforced before since its creation in 1999. So currently, the UK Prime Minister is Rishi Sunak, who is the party leader of the Conservatives. You can kind of understand why then he decided to block this bill, because he's a Conservative. The Conservatives have said in a statement trying to explain why they did what they did, said that they fear making GRCs easier to obtain. Why should they fear that? It's not exactly going to hurt people. And they want to enforce sex-based exclusions, which, as noted, GRCs don't even do. Now, all of this is just a smoke and mirrors way of preventing the progress for trans rights within the UK, even if it is in one constituent country, i.e. Scotland. And it also perpetuates the false narrative that trans women are some sort of inherent threat to cis women. Note that this is a very real example of the culture war being responsible for influencing legislation. I need to escape this hellhole. So after hearing about all of this happening, and also hearing that Nicola Sturgeon, the Scottish First Minister, decided to fight this bill being blocked, my thought, my plan B, as it were, is to wait until Scotland has another referendum to see whether or not they would like independence. When that ultimately goes through, make plans to move to Scotland and thereby live in a trans utopia. Yay! I know it's not that cut and dry. There are still some people in Scotland who are transphobic, some MPs there who voted against this proposed bill, and it does mean living geographically closer to J.K. Rowling. However, Nicola Sturgeon herself, you know, the one who's been vilified and demonised, we can relate. Join us, Nicola. Just resigned her position as Scottish First Minister, and as yet, at time of recording this video, we do not know who the next Scottish First Minister will be. One can only hope that her replacement will be as eager as she was to push for trans rights, or maybe even more willing. It seems that while Scotland sees this as an issue of people's individual freedoms, Westminster, British government, thinks that pushing this fabricated narrative of trans rights versus women's safety is more important, when in fact, again, that is nonsense. Trans people being allowed to access GRCs more easily doesn't affect women's safety. Hi, I'm Benjamin, this channel's political commentator, and when I'm not political commentating, I'm catching up with the news by reading such well-established and respected papers such as iNews. Look, to be honest, I'd never heard of this before I saw it a couple of months ago, but there was something rather interesting inside that I thought I would want to talk about. Small article here under the equalities subject. Piece by Chloe Chaplin. Call for less heat in Labour Party's trans rights debate. Already I'm seething by the fact that it's being framed as a debate. We are not a debatable fucking topic. Senior Labour politicians called for calm in the debate about trans issues after the author J.K. Rowling suggested that the party was not protecting female MPs who speak out about issues of gender. The Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy told the Times Radio that the party needed less heat and more understanding when discussing transgender rights. Understanding, yes, but I'm going to go ahead and say more heat is needed because our rights are in danger. Our safety is at risk. And he said that he was really sad that his fellow Labour MP Rosie Duffield said that being in the party reminded her of a former abusive relationship she was in. Ms. Duffield has faced disagreement with her position on women's rights in the face of reforms to laws for transgender self-identification. For more details on what she actually said, check my previous video. I'll leave a link to that. To summarise, Rosie Duffield has got criticism for her comments about trans women, and rightly so, she was criticised. And now she's playing the victim card.
Boo-hoo! I'm so victimised because I couldn't get away with hate-mongering against the nasty evil transes trying to access women's bathrooms.
Even though they're actually women. Rosie Duffield also says that male MPs have drowned her out on women's issues. No! People, including other Labour MPs, disagreed with her hate-mongering and called her out on it. That's not the same thing as being a victim in an abusive relationship. After a debate on the issue last week, she accused several male party colleagues of trying to drown her out in the Commons when she supported the government's move to block gender reforms proposed in Scotland. An ally of Ms. Duffield, Ms. Rowling, later shared a clip which appeared to show Keir Starmer's aide, Matthew Doyle, questioning whether the MP's stance on transgender rights was damaging her popularity in her constituency of Canterbury. Ms. Rowling criticised the party's handling of the issue because she can't keep her fucking unwanted nose out. I think Duffield should spend more time listening to her constituents. Isn't that what MPs are supposed to do? And yes, trans people do exist in Canterbury. Or her other option, radical as this may seem, she could always step down as MP, and seeing as her values clearly don't align with the rest of the Labour Party, and maybe get someone in who isn't bigoted. According to a leaked conversation published by political website Guido Fawkes, the spokesman for Sir Keir is said to have suggested that some of Ms. Duffield's constituents wanted her to spend a bit more time in her constituency rather than hanging out with J.K. Rowling. But it is understood that he also said he respected Ms. Duffield's right to speak out on trans issues and that the clip, which was recorded secretly, was taken out of context. Sir Keir said that the party must have respect and tolerance in the face of differing opinions. Keir Starmer is weak. According to the now famous tolerance paradox, the thing that we cannot tolerate is intolerance. This is not just a mere disagreement or agree to disagree kind of moment. This is people's rights and lives that are on the line. These things are not debatable, should not be debatable, and definitely need to be protected. What would you say if someone came in spouting a bunch of Nazi rhetoric, saying that Jewish people are all bad and evil and we need to get rid of them, and you would criticise that person, and rightly so. Moreover, you wouldn't tolerate it. So why is it okay to have these debates about trans people, but not Jewish people, or black people, or any other marginalised group within society? As I was writing the script for this video, I found out about an incident thanks to my researcher who found details about a story published by the Daily Mail, which, for those of you who don't know, is a right-leaning rag where journalistic integrity goes to die. There was an article published written by a Tory councillor called Ruby Sampson. Details about this story, again, down below in the description, but the short version of this story is that Ruby clocked a trans woman, or someone who she thought was a trans woman, in the ladies' loo of a Westminster pub. I'm talking the Borough of Westminster here, not UK government Westminster. They're in the same place. Yeah. Anyway, her article doesn't exactly paint a positive picture of this trans woman, and says that, you know, she admits that she was shocked to see a trans woman in the ladies' loo, which, like, why would you be shocked to see that in 2023? Anyway, because of a broken hand dryer, Sampson said something along the lines of that she would just have to shake her hands, and the trans girl turned to her and said, quote, "I'm going to wipe my hands on my penis." Yeah, 10 out of 10. That really happened, sis. Anyway, the rest of the article was kind of a transphobic tirade about what if she had attacked me, and my safety was in question, and I felt so triggered and traumatized. And the reason I have no problem with, like, taking the piss out of this woman's reaction is because we now know the full story. The YouTuber Sophie from Mars thinks that the story was about her, and tweeted that she thinks that it was her in the bathroom, and explains that the sentence she said was, quote, "I'll just wipe my hands on my jeans." Jeans, not penis. They kind of sound a bit similar, right? But this is a lot more plausible and realistic of an explanation, especially because jeans are more absorbent than... Yeah, it's too bad that the Daily Mail didn't do their due diligence in their research and actually look for a reasonable explanation before publishing this whole article. But why would they? It supports their anti-trans bias. And it also really tells you of the projection that was going on in this Ruby Sampson's mind. Like, here she is confronted with a trans woman in a public loo where, like, she's been told that trans women are a threat, and she's focusing so much on the body of this individual trans woman that her mind puts two and two together and comes up with, like, 76. And then she goes to perpetuate the same kind of hateful bigotry and narrative that she's heard. I'd say it was a comedy of errors, but being vilified in mainstream media is no laughing matter. I don't find it all that funny. It just contributes to more hate, more danger for people like me. This is, let it be noted, the kind of hate that ended up getting Brianna Gay killed. Killed in this country. Not even the United Guns of America. Here. Which is why Sophie was in Westminster in the first place. She was there protesting for the safety of trans people. There are people out there that say I'm probably worse than Satan. People who are political pundits like Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro. Politicians, political leaders like Donald Trump and Rishi Sunak. Religious fundamentalists like Stephen Anderson and Matt Powell of the NIFB. Literal Nazis, Nick Fuentes, Richard Spencer. And your average run-of-the-mill everyday TERFs, Posey Parker, J.K. Rowling. Point 1. Me going about my life, my very ordinary everyday life, doing work, having a social life, seeing friends, having interests like gaming and movies and making videos and, God, even just vacuuming. I live a very ordinary life. But to those people, me just being myself is some kind of abomination. And I'm happy to rebel against them and their thinking. They want to say I'm unholy, that I'm a sinner. I never really wanted to fit in with their world anyway. Like, hello, I'm doing much better by myself, being myself. At the body shop, doing something unholy. The problem is that ignorant hate mongers and bigots and, people who spread disinformation, they don't like to just let other people live their lives in peace. They have to get involved, just sticking their noses into other people's business where it's not wanted, not requested, not fucking needed. So to those people who are the root cause of me being such a rebel, I'm going to say, well, you brought this on yourselves, but also I'm going to say you've ruined enough lives, like, desist now. I know they're not going to listen to me, but if someone could get the message to them, that would be great. Just give up. It's not worth your time or mine. That's why this kind of stuff matters. Because people's lives are in danger. Not just our livelihoods, although let's face it, that matters an awful lot. Where we get to work and live and, rent and earn money and stuff. If we're denied that kind of access, then yes, our quality of life rapidly decreases. But also, our actual living, breathing bodies get attacked all the time. Viva la revolution and hail Satan at the same time. Non-binary is valid, goddammit. Bye. At the body shop, doing something unholy.